So hi everyone. Thank you for attending University Libraries, a great resource for finding content for your courses. My name is Tracy Miller and I will be the moderator of today's panel. And what I'm going to do is just start by having our panelists introduce themselves and just tell you a little bit about their role. If anyone, I see the names on this list, everyone has been to our sessions before, but if you're interested in communicating through the text chat area, at the bottom of the screen, there's a bottom right of the screen, there's a purple arrow with a couple carrots there. Click on that. The next icon over is the speech bubble icon, and that's where you can join us in the text chat area. But other than that, panelists, if you'd like to introduce yourself, let's start this thing.
I'll go first. My last name's A, so yeah, I figure alphabetically. I am Teresa Rado. I'm the Deputy Director over at the Law Library. I teach legal research to both first-year students and upper-level students, and have been at NIU for now over 20 years. So I am happy to answer questions about law resources. Some of them are specific just to those in the law school, but there are other things that are broadly available, and I'm happy to answer questions and provide access to information that we can. Great to be here, and good morning, everyone.
I guess I'll go next since I'm alphabetically next. I'm Deanna Ferris. I am an assistant professor and a subject specialist librarian for a lot of programs, so hold on. So psychology, leadership, educational psychology and foundations, women's and gender studies, the curator of children's literature, and I'm in charge of sort of textbook affordability initiatives and kind of one of the point people on open educational resources. And so I'm a reference librarian and a subject specialist, and I'm happy to kind of talk about finding resources that you need, both kind of print materials, which right now feels like a thing of the past, but especially sort of e-resources and trying to help you find materials that are free or inexpensive for your students.
Jamie, I think you're our last panelist.
Yeah, it keeps asking me to give it permission. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm Jamie Schumacher, and in normal times, I work 2 doors down from Deanna. I am the Senior Director of Digital Collections and Scholarship, and much like Deanna, and most of you, I have lots of ands in my title and my responsibilities. So I've been at NIU for about 8 years, and the first 5 years I was on a grant-based project, and then in the last few years I've taken over the responsibilities of doing scholarly communications work, things like open access, the institutional repository. I recognize some of the names on the attendee list of folks that have applied for like our open access publishing fund. And then I also help with curating some of our digital collections and making sure people are aware of our resources. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, so this is the way the panel is going to work this morning. We're going to have each of our panelists talk a little bit about what they do and how they're a great resource and opportunities you have to tap into those resources. And we're also going to open up a discussion. And so feel free at any time to add a comment or a question to the text chat area. And then when we get more towards that open discussion area, you'll be able to ask specific panelist questions. And again, you can use a text chat. It's a small enough group where I think we can also try to turn on some microphones. But I'm going to start off by asking Deanna to share a little bit about what she does and the resources she has.
Thanks, Tracy. So I was kind of thinking about, what we could do in a really kind of short period of time to kind of make sure that people know about some of the kind of great resources we have. And so I was kind of calling this open doors, e-resources, and OERs, but I guess it's probably open virtual doors. One of the things I think that I want to kind of say right off the bat is that while lots of things on campus are closed, and with good reason, parts of the library are open, physically open, but the virtual library is absolutely open pretty much all the time. We have sort of reference hours that are being kept online, and actually extended reference hours. So we're available 7 days a week. Right now we're available till 10 p.m. In the evening on sort of virtual chat. So there are all of those resources available to you, and I'll kind of come back to those at the end. But I wanted to talk more specifically about various sort of electronic resources and where you can find them and how they might be sort of useful to you. All right, so really quickly, I'm just going to talk about ebooks, digital video, and then open educational resources. And so I'll kind of give you some basic information, and then there are some places on the library's website that you can go to for additional information. I also just want to say that if you have any questions about open educational resources, you can certainly contact me, but you can also talk to your library subject specialist, and I'll kind of show you where to find that information if you don't know who your library subject specialist is. Okay, so you may have noticed this summer things changed on the library website. NIU and the other members of the consortium that we belong to, the one that's responsible for iShare, changed our library system. And so we're still kind of getting the swing of things, getting into the swing of things, but that happened in late June. And so it may look a little bit different. So if you haven't been visiting the library's website recently, you might want to kind of just noodle around a little bit and see what's changed. But the idea is that this new system is supposed to make it easier to find more materials, and it has this kind of connection with the other iShare libraries that hopefully will be helpful to you. But I wanted to kind of just point out the homepage, and that the default is still going to be searching NIU's collections. And so if you're sort of looking at the screen as Husky Search, that is the name of our kind of native version of this this library management system. And so you can still search for books or videos or anything just in that search bar. If it's a title that we own, it'll show up in the catalog. You can look there. And so that is still available to you. Okay. But one of the things I want to talk about is ebooks. Ebooks have become incredibly important in the last 7 months, and pretty much since March, the library is exclusively buying ebooks, mostly to support classroom teaching, but also occasionally if someone needed it for research, because there was for a time when we weren't actually loaning physical materials. We are doing that. iShare is now back up and running as well, so you still can request materials from other libraries. But the ebooks are still incredibly important, especially since so many of our students are not on campus, faculty not on campus. And so there are a few different ways to access those things. And so I wanted to make sure you knew about them, because in some ways it's easier to get to them than it used to be. So just on the main page, over where the kind of search is, there is a kind of drop-down menu, and you can choose what you're going to search. And so you can search in the regular library library catalog, also iShare, but ebooks is now an option, so you can search there, and so it'll look in all of our ebook collections to find materials that you want. You still also have the option to just use the regular Husky search, put in the search bar a title that you're looking for, or a topic that you're looking for, and then when you get to the page of results, over here on the right-hand side, you'll see filters. And so you can just filter and say, I want something that's available online. When you do that, it's going to still give you options for, say, electronic video. So you probably then also want to change resource type, which is down there too, and just choose books. And that'll kind of give you the various ebooks that we have related to that title or that particular topic. One of the other things that's become really important is film and digital video. And we've always had a decent amount of access to digital film resources, but we've actually expanded that. And so probably a lot of you are familiar with Canopy, which is a service where we purchase individual titles, and we have a license for about a year. But we also have academic video online, which is a kind of collection of videos in a variety of fields. And so you have things in the arts. You have a lot of materials on education, teacher training. There's also a lot in psychology and sociology. And so that's a really great resource. We've also added recently something called Swank Digital Campus. The name always makes me laugh. So Swanky Films. And again, this is like Canopy, where we purchase titles and then we have a license for a year. And so for those individual items that we have purchased, they show up in the catalog. So if you went into Husky Search and typed in Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing, you would come up with the DVD copy that we physically have in the library, but you'll also get a link to the online version, which is available through Swank. And so if you know a title that you're looking for, you can kind of look in that way, or you can kind of go into any of these databases and search for materials that you want. Okay. And again, you can do this a couple of different ways. All of these sort of film repositories are listed under databases, and so we have tons of them. You can look by subject, but it's going to deal with ones that are just in your particular subject or field. So you can also go in and go to the A to Z list, or you can type something in. So if you just type in video, it'll bring up all of the video collections that we have. And as I said, there are probably about a dozen or more. And so the ones that I just talked about, plus other ones that are kind of more field specific, will show up there. You can also, if you know what you're looking for, you can type that in. So if you typed in academic video online, it'll take you to a link, click on it, and you go straight into Alexander Street. They're the ones that create a sort of repository of a wide range of materials from the arts and other fields. And so those are really great resources. What I wanted to talk to, the kind of last thing I wanted to talk about, is that we do have a lot of resources available to help you find materials that are free, that are in the public domain, that have been granted a kind of are attached to a Creative Commons license, which allows you to reuse, remix, redistribute, revise. And so we actually put together a LibGuide a few years ago as part of the library's textbook affordability initiative. And so some of you have probably seen this since I was aggressively sending this out to people the last few years when I was sending out requests for textbook purchases. But there is a lot of resources there. There's stuff on here kind of more generally about textbook affordability. There's resources for students so that they can kind of shop around and find the least expensive book. But there's also tons of material for faculty members on how to find good quality materials that you can use in your class. And so I've put a link to the LibGuide there, and I will throw it into the chat once I'm done as well. And so we have lots of different things on that resource page. A lot of the really large popular repositories of open educational materials are in Merlot or the Open Textbook Library, Project Gutenberg. And so if you're in the humanities, a lot of things that are sort of no longer under copyright show up there. And so you can get high quality edited editions of materials. Thanks, Tracy. That are, they're slightly older. They might not have the sexiest typeface, but they're free. And they sometimes have lots of editorial apparatus that's actually really useful for students. And so that's a great resource. Oasis, again, is a repository where you can search for materials in your particular field. And then I also put up Vimeo Creative Commons, lots of kind of video is available too. And there's tons of resources. I mean, if you're in the arts, there are so many repositories of images that can be used. A lot of libraries across the world have made their collections available, or at least large parts of their collections available. So for instance, the European Union has something called Europeana, which has huge amounts of material that are freely available to use. And so there's a lot of really great resources. The thing about OER is that there's so much it can be intimidating. And so this is why it's really useful to have someone else to bounce ideas off of and to kind of work with your library subject specialist. And so if you don't know who your library subject specialist is, if you go to the library's homepage, at the top of the page on the far right-hand side, there is a little button that says Help, and it has a drop-down menu. And if you click on that, Find a Subject Specialist is right there. And so you can work with them. You can also work with me. You say, I'm interested in finding a text on, in the medical field that's really solid and is especially sort of useful in this particular area. Do you have any suggestions? And so I can work with your subject specialist to see if we can find some materials for you. If you're ever just in the process of looking for something late at night, 9 o'clock, right, when we still have an hour before we close on the reference desk, you can throw a question into Ask a Librarian chat, and we will happily help you. And if we're not there, we will get to it the next day and contact you and either direct you to a person who can help you with something or try to answer that question for you right then and there. Every page now, with the exception of pages inside the databases, now has a chat bubble that pops up. And so if you're ever looking at something and you say, I don't know what to do with this, you can always click on that and ask for help. And so we've tried to expand our services to kind of help you as much as possible so you can get whatever you need. So that's it for me. We can talk about any other issues later on. Thanks.
Deanna, Therese had a question in the text chat, so maybe you could address that. It has to do with the license.
Yeah. Yes, it doesn't allow you to. I think it's not meant to be shown in a group, say where you are charging money, but you can use it for a class. So, for instance, if you are, you have a class that meets in Blackboard Collaborate, you can put a link to that film and they can watch it. You can also watch it collectively in a class. If you had a situation even where there wasn't a digital copy available and you wanted the students to watch a class and you had a DVD, theoretically you can play that in class, just like you would if you were in a physical classroom setting. So most of them will allow for that. So you can use that link. I mean, it's for many of these, where we buy that individual license, it's only good for a year and then it goes away anyway. But the idea is that as long as you're using it in an educational setting, that it seems to fall under fair use. And so that is my understanding.
This may be pushing the fair use, but is it possible for a student organization who is not charging, just wants to do a let's get together virtually to try and build some community, to have a movie night and use something like that? No funds, it's not a fundraiser or anything.
I don't know for sure. I think it would be it's slightly more complicated. I think sometimes when you actually, if you're, say, trying to show a video in Collaborate using another web resource, sometimes I've noticed that there are issues with sound, that you might be able to see the video but not all hear it. That is occasionally a problem, I think. So if you send everybody the link and they're all watching it at the same time, but you're not actually showing it anyway, that isn't violating anything. I don't know about whether you had a kind of, if you did kind of, sign in and show that and you did have sound. I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I think that you'd have to ask someone who knows more about copyright than me. That is not one of my hats. Right. Thanks.
The lawyer's asking this question.
Understood. All right. Thank you.
All right, Jamie, are you ready to share?
I sure am. And Therese, I am cracking up that the lawyer is asking the copyright questions. Oh, man.
It's just one of those areas that's so gray sometimes, so I figure other people might know.
It really is. And something that crossed my mind is if there's a controlled invitation list that's a member of a group, and that group is part of the NIU community that has access to this license, then I'm going to vote for fair use. That's going to be my vote. So.
Thank you.
So I am going to share my screen. Hey, everyone, I'm Jamie Schumacher. We met Jamie Schumacher 2, apparently, because I had technology issues earlier. I am going to share my screen so that I can show you 3 different methods for accessing some primary source materials and just scholarship in general, except in how it's like looking at me. Okay, I have kids doing school as well, and I'm hoping bandwidth won't be a problem. Let me turn my video off. Come on, little buddy. All right, give me a moment. We had this working earlier, as Tracy will tell you.
I'll vouch for you. I do. Oh, something's happening. Nope. I do have a page open at the University Digital Library. Maybe if you could, if I could share my screen and you can kind of show me where to click, we can try that. Oh, she's reconnecting. Let's see if she's able to get back in. Ah, got it.
And so you can see my screen and you can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It's a good day. All right. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to talk about 3 methods for accessing source materials, particularly in a remote environment. And one of the things I'm actually going to switch up the order. I want to talk first then about accessing remotely materials that are in our catalog or archives. I know Deanna mentioned that it seems right now that that's kind of in the past, being able to go in and look at something, but we're trying to bring that to you so that you can still access our wealth of print materials that we have. So one of the first things that I want to show you is that you can now request to have some of our physical materials digitized through our new catalog system. And this is available currently only for faculty members. And I'm going to show you real quickly how to do that. Let Nope, that's not what I want. Stand by. Search anything. The possibilities are limitless. So let's look at the food of Vietnam, which I totally didn't search ahead of time just to make sure it would work. So let's see. The food of Vietnam, authentic recipes. We have an amazing Southeast Asian collection, and we have so many print materials that are unique to our library. And it breaks our hearts that folks aren't able to access that material as easily as they once were. Now you can still page this material and have it brought to you, but what we're able to do now within normal copyright restrictions are provide you with digitized content for some of these materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that this is available. I'm hoping that this is large enough to see in the NIU Southeast Asian collection. Boy, if you haven't seen that collection, it is absolutely lovely. And what you can do as a faculty member at NIU now is if you sign in, you can see what sort of request options are. So it used to be that you could page this, obviously, to have it brought to you. You could find it on the shelf. But one of the things that we have now is this digitization request, and I am so excited about this. Again, it's limited to just NIU faculty members at this time. And if you click on that, it will allow you to request a certain amount of this material to be digitized and then either emailed to you or a link will be provided to you. And you send that digitization request and it heads our way and we get to that as quickly as we can. We've had a handful of folks use this, and some of them have requested entire monographs, and that's not possible for many items due to copyright restrictions. However, if you're trying to see if, just for instance, if this book might work for you with what you're going to be doing, you can request maybe the first chapter and we can get that digitized and get that to you. And then we can talk about options for access to the rest of the material if you find that it's going to work for you. I'm just like ridiculously excited about that. We also have another way of accessing materials that's open to you, your students, and the public. And it's also digitization, but there's a separate way that you get at this. What's nice about this digitization request option is it can extend to items that aren't found in our catalog as well. So it could be something perhaps in our archives, in our rare books and special collections that might be listed in our archival finding aid as opposed to in our catalog. And to get to that, you would go to services and then you would go to digitization request. And this then provides as much information as you can provide us so that we can find the materials that you are looking for. And then we do actually have folks request items for publication. And so in that case, there are restrictions and sometimes fees associated with how that material is being reused. So there's a lot of questions here, but most of it you'll just click through because it might be just for academic purposes and for your own. This is also a newer request form that we've put out there so that we can get some of this access back to you folks. I just want to stop real quickly and see if there are any questions regarding those request forms. And let me switch back here and see if it came up in chat. Well, thank you, Deanna. Okay, and we'll have time for questions at the end as well. So all that can be found there on our library home site. So again, the services and the digitization request form We get requests from anything from maps to photographs to parts of monographs, books. We even recently digitized some VHS recordings in our archive for the use of our 125th anniversary. So if you have print materials that you really want to have available for your own scholarship, for your own research, or for your students, this is a great option for you. The second method for accessing some source materials that are digital in nature already, you're going to find that at NIU, we are building up our digital collections. So in most cases, in fact, in most cases, what you're going to find in our digital collections are materials that we either physically hold here or that we've discovered elsewhere that we've digitized or have had digitized, and we've curated these collections and we bring them to you digitally. So I'm going to go here to our digital collections, and you'll see if you look under specific collections, you can browse the entire digital library, or you can look within special collections that have been curated. So just as an example of something that has primary source material as well as secondary commentary about it, perhaps an article or two, videos, here's Mark Twain's Mississippi. And there's some explanation, and then you can dive down into the materials that have all been digitized. There's also our Southeast Asia Digital Library is another phenomenal resource, and this contains materials that have been digitized on trips to Southeast Asia that our Southeast Asia librarian has conducted. And then you're also going to find what's known as born digital materials. So these are things that there's no physical equal to. They would be something like oral histories that have been captured. I'm going to head back real quick. And if you look at our recently added, you'll see here that we've actually been conducting some oral histories. And these are just a list of some of the ones that have been added most recently. Currently, we're conducting, doing a project in conjunction with the Center for Black Studies on some oral histories in the DeKalb area and related to NIU specifically. So you can browse all the different collections. You can search specifically for something. Our university archives and our regional history center also has items that have been digitized. And just as a quick example here, our sheet music collection that we're digitizing is just, they're beautiful. And it's a great resource for you. And I'm happy to say that NIU is not alone in these efforts. The amount of curated digital collections that are available to you and your students has just exploded over the past decade. And just as a quick way, the Digital Public Library of America is one way to access some of these collections. They have online exhibits, primary source sets, and what's particularly lovely about this digital collection of materials is that this is a platform which scoops up all of the information about digital collections at universities like NIU or perhaps historical societies or museums who have made their digital content available for indexing and crawling. This brings it all together. So if you're looking for materials related to like Mark Twain, you'll be able to find digital materials that are openly available and can be used by you and your students. And this is just a really cool way to do that. And this is just one of many platforms for getting at the materials that are out there. And finally, the last method I'd like to discuss is accessing scholarly articles. I'm going to pop back and see. I thought I heard a chat thing come up. Oh, absolutely, our Don Novel collection. We're actually have a symposium coming up too. We've got can I say the best? We have the best dime novel collection that's been digitized and made available online, and it's even that material is even available for digital humanities projects like text mining, which is really cool because you can take that body of work and you can ask questions of it about perhaps gender or something related to workforce studies. And it's pretty amazing that what you can do with the digital materials that the NIU has available to you and our peer institutions and similar institutions across the world. Oh, thank you for that. So for scholarly articles, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. As you are thinking about accessing materials for your own research, for your students, for their curriculum, and encouraging your students as they do their own research, accessing scholarly articles has sometimes been a frustrating experience for folks. And I see my 15-year-old daughter spying on me to see what mama does at work. Hi, Sam. Sorry. So I like to call it repositories to the rescue. So if you are looking for scholarly articles about certain topics, because there's an increasing number of open access initiatives across the world, that means we now have some options for accessing the scholarship that previously was just 100% completely paywalled. And that's not as a big of a barrier anymore, and we're working to try to keep that down or to decrease those barriers. If you are like most of your students, you hop right on over to Google Scholar and you start your search there. Fortunately for us, you can also access Google Scholar through the library's website, and I just think that's awesome because, you know, we got to meet folks where they are. So I am going to do a quick search just to show you how to access this material without having to pay for it or request it. I know sometimes it's frustrating when you're trying to get this material just to see whether or not it will work. You're often not eager to pump out $35 just to find out that, oh, this research isn't about what I thought it was. So I'm going to do a quick search on Tourette syndrome and autism. And I'm hoping you can still see my screen, and I'm sure Tracy would holler at me if you can't.
I would politely holler at you.
Oh, thank you. Because I couldn't see a stink eye. So I'm now in Google Scholar itself, and I'm seeing a lot of results. Of course, I'm going to look at more recent things. So let's say since 2016. And I'm going to see here, yes, this is what I'm interested in, interneurons and autism and Tourette syndrome. Actually, I'm just interested in my daughter stopping asking me 50 questions of the same variety within a 10-minute span, but interneurons are great too. So what you're going to notice is if you click on this, it's going to take you to the Elsevier website, where this is where the version of record resides. So this should look familiar to all of you. You see the abstract and you're like, yes, I want this. And I see now that I can either log in and get it if my institution happens to subscribe to it, which institutions, libraries are subscribing to fewer journals because they're no longer affordable. Or I can purchase the PDF for $35.95. What I want to encourage you to share with your students, and use yourself if you haven't yet already, you'll see here it says there are 6 versions of this article. And when I click on that, I'll see the original site that it took me to, which is excellent because it's the version of record. But what you're going to see here is this same article appears in some repositories. And Lord bless the Europeans, they've been really good about making their materials open access, mandating it, and providing the infrastructure with which that material can be openly accessible. So I'm going to go down here. This is the same article, and I see that it's available in, perhaps it be a .org, a .edu. Some wonderful institution has a repository in place where the folks that wrote this article, the authors, can deposit their manuscript. And now, free to read, we can actually see this same article. Now, it's not going to be formatted as nicely. There's a difference between preprint and postprint articles. So that's something that if you are interested, we have information about that as far as what might have changed about the content. But generally what you're going to find in these repositories is the identical content to the version of record, but the author has retained the copyright or license to make it also freely available. And so this is one of those excellent ways of legally getting at material that might normally be behind a paywall. For my own research, if I find that, yes, this is absolutely the article that's going to work for me, and I want to use it in my own research, that's when I would go back to that version of record and say, okay, I want to go about the traditional means of accessing this material. So I might request it through interlibrary loan, or perhaps my library has a subscription to it, or perhaps I can pay for it, and hopefully the grant I have of $5 million to do this research will help pay for that. So those are 3 ways of getting at some of this material that I know y'all need and want, and you want to share, and I'm excited to be of assistance if I can be to you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm glad it worked. Yeah, agree.
Great job. Any questions for Jamie? And while you're thinking, I have a sort of a basic question of how much time do you need? If it, for instance, if a faculty member was planning their spring course right now, should they be reaching out and asking for these materials to be digitalized, or working with their specialists to come up with them? I'm assuming you don't need like 24 hours and it's done, right?
We have been known to turn things around very quickly. However, even our digitization lab staff, they aren't at the building full time anymore. We're doing modified schedules. So we definitely need more time than usual if you're doing a digitization request. So of course, we always ask for as much time as you can give us. And what we love too is, as you're pulling together your curriculum, if you have a subject that you want some materials on, go ahead and poke your subject specialist like Deanna mentioned, because they may be aware of some resources out there that you just haven't stumbled across yet. So the more time, the better. I will defer to Deanna on harder timelines for, if you want something, let's say, put on course reserves, how much time you need for that. My cat wants to join us. I'll defer to Deanna on that.
Yeah, as far as course reserves, again, the same issues that staff in the reserves office are not working full time at the physical building, and so scanning and getting that up takes a little bit longer than it used to. If there's an emergency that you need something quickly, and it's not a huge scanning job, that's something that can still happen relatively quickly, but obviously, the sooner you can put in a request, the better, just so they have more lead time, especially if you're asking for material that we don't physically own a copy of, and that you are not sort of providing a physical copy that can be scanned by reserves. So then we'd have to kind of request it from another institution and then scan it. So a couple weeks is better. Months, I'm sure the reserves office would love it if you were months and months ahead. But if there's an emergency, if there's a situation where you need something quickly, contact the reserve office and let them know.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Well, for now, I will take that as everyone is getting excellent information and they know who to reach out to if they do have a question. But I'm going to turn it over to Therese to talk about the law library a little bit.
Thanks, Tracy. I am going to attempt to share my screen as well. We're going to see what happens here. I switched, I think I have the right screen. Yeah, I got a new monitor, so I'm never quite sure what. Oh,
what
come
you're
on.
going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Where do I get my little box to come up with my options now?
Well, you're sharing your screen. There you go. Just click on a
Oh,
tab. Perfect.
okay. So on mine, it was the infinite loop. Okay. Whoops. Did you get the infinite loop back?
We did, yeah. Just as long as you're on a specific tab besides the Blackboard Collaborate tab, it kind of holds it steady.
Okay.
Looks good
So
now.
there we go. Now I can see them both. There we go. Excellent. So good morning, everybody. I'm always blown away by the things that the University Library does. They're just phenomenal. We try to utilize as many of their resources as we can, and we try to share ours with them as well. But there are some things that within the legal licensing and things we have to do through the law library. And so I want to highlight a few things that you may access through the main catalog, but may not come up just because of the way we have access to them. There is a big, wonderful push in legal research and just the legal world for access to justice. And so there are a number of places you can get materials related to the law at no cost. They don't have the same bells and whistles and things as the research resources that we use in legal research. You may have heard of Lexis and Westlaw as big legal research databases. They don't have the bells and whistles, but they have the primary law content, and much of what we're looking at in legal research is the primary law. But one of the places that you all would have access to, and you can link to specific titles and things through the online catalog, but everybody on campus has digital access to, is our Hein Online collection. So I'm just clicking into one of the pieces here to get us into the collection. But Hein Online, I'm going to go back to the database link here, is a company, it's still a family-owned company, which I love, but they started digitizing legal materials in the original format. So when you come here to get materials, you're getting it as it was created. And so we really highlight that in legal research and writing in the law, because you want to be citing the original source. And so within this database, we get access to these in a scanned digital format of their original source. What is really nice is there are a number of monographs, other types of treatises in here in this legal classics area, and these all show up in the catalog that you saw, the Husky Search catalog, and you would be able to link through and get to them. Now the materials in Hein go back into the hundreds, as we can see with this first link here, all the way up to 2020. So it's a huge array of different dates that are involved. But I'm just going to click on one so you can see that when we get to the materials, you're getting it in its original, I mean, truly original format. These have been scanned and put in here as opposed to digitized in any other manner. You have the ability to create links so you can get back to this. You can download these items. you get it as a PDF. These materials are searchable. The Hines search mechanism has gotten so much better over the years, but it's still a little clunky because you are searching the OCR materials, so it's not as smooth as some of our other search things we're accustomed to. But it's just the material that is within this Hines world is fabulous. And so I came into the law library's A to Z database because we have different collections broken down in here. If you click on any one of them that is Hines, you get to what I saw here. Databases brings us up to the totality, the first page of what we have. And you can see here that there are some international materials as well as US federal materials, and then different subjects. Right now, things that can certainly be of interest that are going on, if I can get down here. World constitutions, world trials. There is the impeachment library. They keep adding, they have COVID response and the law. So if you want things that are specific to legal actions going on related to COVID-19, and then civil rights and social justice. This is a company that is continually adding to the resources they have and getting them up here for us. Now this page I was at here, just going to go back to, this is the law library's main page. We have the Husky search box here that you've already seen, but we have this link to other law databases, and that's the page that I was at here, and this is our A to Z list. And yes, thank you, because LexisNexis Uni is no longer being subscribed to, you can get the case law and other materials that case law statutes within Hines Online. A couple of other resources here that might be, especially interdisciplinary useful is on this list. There is a link to, it's called Max Planck Encyclopedia. I have a tab already open for it, but this deals with international law, and it provides a lot of explanatory background information on different subjects in the international law realm. And so from our page here, you can see it's a link right here. If you're not logged into an NIU service, you will have to put in credentials, but otherwise you'll just be able to link through to this from off campus. And so in the international realm, you can get peer-reviewed articles and other really good information through this resource. And it's specifically on international law as opposed to US materials. And another, you see a lot of these all have Hines, so the collection in there is pretty great. Whoops, trying to, there we go. Okay, apparently I'm asking too much of my service right now, so I'll scroll. I didn't want you guys to have to watch me scroll. This Case Law Access Project. This is actually, we don't subscribe to this. This just happens to be a free website that's out here. It's put out by Harvard. And so they are trying to, there's a number of organizations and groups, but are trying to digitize as much of the case law as is possible, because case law in and of itself is not copyrightable. It's when you put these research enhancements that editors will put in about summarizing things in headnotes that they become, parts of it become copyrightable, but the actual case law is all open and freely available. And so the Case Law Access Project at Harvard Law School is working on getting these materials out here. So if your students needed to do studies on cases that have occurred over time, coming here, again, it's LexisNexis Uni is no longer available. This is a place to be able to get case law. And then another resource, again, this is a number of legal institutions and organizations we see down here. This is Chicago-Kent, Cornell, and LII. They've put together a site that I love, and this can be a great learning tool. It is basically the US Supreme Court arguments going back basically for not forever, but for many, many years. And I mean, you can see here, we go back actually to the beginning for some materials. But what's really awesome about this is, let me get this to come up. It will show you visually who was on the court. So here we get the picture of who was on the court. This was heard. Then over on the side, for many of these arguments, I can actually get the oral argument as it was heard. And so the students can actually listen to the case that, as it was argued. In some of the more recent ones, it actually will highlight as you go along in here so that you can follow the words as well. But it's a really awesome resource. It focuses just on United States Supreme Court cases, but a lot of times in interdisciplinary work, the material that's being discussed is really something that came out of the U.S. Supreme Court because it impacted things so broadly. And so it's a great way to be able to have the students actually get a little summary of what happened with the case. And let me see if there's, here, this one was heard. You get the facts of the case, so it's not having it necessarily at a level where you would expect a lawyer to be interpreting it, but it's great for learning, and it clearly tells us what was the question that they heard, and then when the case is finally decided, we get that other little bit of information, but then we get that oral argument over here on the left as well. So it's a really, really cool site for students and faculty to be able to go and hear it as it happened, and then be able to talk about it at a really interesting level. And so I am going to attempt to stop sharing my screen here. Let's see. Stop sharing. There we go. I know I kind of I have to get back to screen 2. Did it go away? Did my screen sharing go away?
Oh,
nope,
it came back.
Let's make that go away again.
Well, let's just use this opportunity to kind of throw some questions out there for really any of our panelists. But that was really impressive. And, I could see so many of those resources being relevant, like you said, to interdisciplinary, to so many projects that I've heard with discussions across faculty. So that was eye-opening to me for sure. But I'm going to throw that open for any other questions that anybody else has, comments. You're welcome, Alicia. Thanks for joining us. Again, if you're still typing in questions or anything like that, then please feel free to do so. I'm sure we can all hang out for a couple more minutes. But I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists. A lot of great information. I know everyone has been very busy in the last 7 months, and having just knowing about some of these resources that have been around, but I think everybody's really stepped up their game at the same time because there's so much out there right now. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.